He rejected her under the full moon, unaware she carried his heir. Years later, fate brings them together again, and his wolf knows the truth he once denied. But forgiveness isn't easy when scars run deeper than the mark she still bears. Chapter 1. The Rejection. The air in the great hall of the Blood Moon Pack crackled with an energy that was equal parts celebration and nervous tension. Tonight was the Luna Blessing, the one night every 5 years when the moon goddess would personally select a mate for their alpha. From her place at the back of the hall, Livia felt impossibly small. She was an Omega, the lowest rank, a mender of clothes and server of meals. She shouldn't even be here, but the law demanded every unmated female of age present herself. Her heart, however, held a foolish, secret hope. A month ago, during the anonymity of the mating heat, when primal instinct overwhelmed rank, a powerful, unknown wolf had claimed her in the moonlit forest. He'd smelled of pine, thunderstorms, and undisputed command. She knew that scent. It was the same scent that now dominated the hall. Alpha Percival. He stood on the dais, a granite statue of a leader. He was broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes so blue they looked like glacial ice. He was an alpha in his prime, but he was cold. Ever since his first chosen mate, Denna, had betrayed him, attempting to sell pack secrets to a rival for power, Percival had become hard. He ruled with logic and strength, dismissing the ideas of fated mates and goddess-chosen love as fairy tales for pups. The ceremony began. The pack seer, Shota, a woman with eyes that seemed to see through stone and soil, began the ancient chant. One by one, the high-ranking females stepped forward, Lady Verna, proud and strong, Sister Philippa, beautiful and cunning. Percival watched them all with the same dispassionate gaze. "We call upon the goddess," Shota's voice echoed, silencing the murmurs. "Show us her who will be the heart of this pack. Show us the Luna." A beam of pure, ethereal moonlight broke through the high windows of the hall. It bypassed the ceremonial altar, skipped over the stunned, high-born females on the dais, and shot like an arrow across the room. It landed on Livia. The light illuminated her, warming her skin, making her simple flaxen dress look like it was woven from starlight. A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. An Omega. The goddess had chosen an Omega. Livia's heart hammered against her ribs. It was a mistake. It had to be. But the light was undeniable, and a faint silver mark, the crescent of a new moon, began to burn itself onto the skin of her neck. The Luna's mark. Across the room, Alpha Percival stared, his expression unreadable. Then it hardened into something she had never seen before. Pure, unadulterated fury. He strode down the dais, his boots echoing with terrifying finality. The pack parted before him. He stopped just inches from her, the sheer force of his alpha aura pressing down on her, demanding submission. He was so close she could feel the heat radiating from him, smell that intoxicating scent of pine and storm. It was him, the wolf from the forest. He knew it too. His eyes flickered to her neck, where the mark was now fully formed, and then back to her face. His lip curled in a sneer. "No," he said, his voice quiet but carrying to every corner of the silent hall. Livia's blood ran cold. "Alpha? The moon goddess is mistaken," Percival announced, turning his head to address the pack, though his eyes never left Livia. "She burdens me with a sentimental choice. This pack is surrounded by enemies. We are at war with the rogues of the East and the mountain clans. We require strength. We require a warrior Luna, not a servant." The humiliation was a physical blow, sharper than any blade. She could hear the whispers starting, the snickers from Lady Verna, the ambitious smirk of Mordred, Percival's jealous cousin and rival for pack standing. "Alpha, please," Livia whispered, tears welling. The bond was already thrumming, a golden thread tying her soul to his. She could feel his anger, his coldness, and worse, the lingering ghost of his past betrayal. "I, Alpha Percival of the Blood Moon Pack," he boomed, and the power in his voice forced Livia to her knees. He grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. His blue eyes were devoid of any warmth. "I reject the goddess's choice. I reject you, Livia, as my mate and Luna." The world shattered. The nascent golden bond between them didn't just fade, it snapped. The pain was excruciating. 1,000 knives of ice plunging into her chest and her wolf howling in agony. He released her, and she collapsed, gasping. "Let her be gone by dawn." Percival commanded, to no one in particular. I will not have this weakness polluting my pack. He turned and stalked back to the dais without a second glance. The celebration music started up again, hesitant at first, then defiantly loud. The pack, loyal to their alpha over the goddess, turned their backs on her. Livia lay on the cold stone floor, shattered and alone. She clutched her stomach as a wave of intense nausea, sharp and different from the pain of rejection, rolled through her. Her mind flashed back to that night in the woods, the mating heat, the powerful, desperate claim. Oh, goddess, no. It wasn't just the nausea of a broken bond, it was the sharp pulling sickness of a new life, a life that had taken root before the rejection. She pushed herself up, ignoring the stars in her vision. She locked eyes with him one last time across the hall. He was watching, his face a mask of indifference. You will regret this, she mouthed, the words stolen by the music. She turned and ran. She fled the great hall, fled the packlands, her own wolf's howl of grief swallowed by the night. As she stumbled past the pack border, she collapsed behind a great oak, the pain and the sickness overwhelming her. She didn't know it, but the silvery Luna's mark on her neck, though rejected, did not fade. It settled into her skin, a permanent scar-like reminder of the alpha who had just disowned her, and his unborn child. Chapter 2. The Escape. The forest was a dark, thorny maze. Livia ran with no destination, fueled only by adrenaline and the agonizing echo of the broken bond. Every snap of a twig sounded like a warrior sent to drag her back. Her ankle twisted on a loose rock, sending her tumbling down a short, sharp embankment. She landed in a heap of damp leaves, the impact stealing her breath. Her wolf, a timid creature that had spent its life in submission, was now frantic, hurt, alone. Run. Danger. Livia whimpered, curling into a ball. The pain in her chest was a constant icy presence, but the nausea was worse. It was a deep, internal wrongness. She was pregnant. She was certain of it. The mate's heat was the one time a wolf's nature bypassed all protection. It was designed to create heirs. And Percival had rejected her. What would he do if he knew? An alpha heir born of a rejected omega. He would take the pup. He would see it as a blood moon asset but would deny its omega mother. He would steal her child and raise it to be as cold and hard as he was, while she would be, at best, exiled, at worst, silenced permanently. No, he will never have this child. That single thought was a steel rod plunged into her spine. The timid omega, who had entered the great hall, was gone, burned away by the fires of humiliation. A mother was being forged in the cold, damp earth. She tried to stand, but her ankles screamed in protest. She was exposed, her scent of distress and pregnancy, a beacon to any rogue or predator in the woods. Livia! The voice was a whisper, and Livia scrambled backward, grabbing a rock. A figure slid down the embankment, hood drawn. Hush, it's me. The figure pulled back the hood, revealing the kind, worried face of 80, the pack's assistant healer. She was Livia's only friend, another low-ranked she-wolf who knew the cruelty of the pack's elite. 80, you have to go. They'll see you. I saw you run, 80 said, already kneeling, her hands running over Livia's swollen ankle. I saw what he did, that bastard. I grabbed what I could. She pushed a heavy satchel into Livia's arms. Inside was dried meat, a full water skin, bandages, and a small, heavy pouch of coins. I can't take this, Livia gasped. You must, 80 insisted, already wrapping Livia's ankle with practiced efficiency. There's a place, a hidden village, neutral territory, high in the White Pine Mountains. It's a sanctuary for wolves without a pack. They call it Whisper Creek. I've marked it on a map. She tucked a small rolled-up parchment into the bag. Thank you, 80, thank you. Livia broke down, sobs racking her frame. 80, it's worse. She couldn't say it. 80 paused, her eyes widening. She gently placed a hand on Livia's still flat stomach. Her healer's senses, combined with a she-wolf's intuition, understood. Oh, Livia. Oh, by the goddess. The mating heat. Livia nodded, tears streaming. He rejected us both. 80's face, usually so gentle, hardened. Then he is a fool who deserves to lose you. But this changes everything. You can't just run. You have to vanish. She pulled a small vial from her pocket. This is a scent-masking poultice. It's made of silver root and moon petal. It will burn, but it will hide your trail from his trackers. They'll follow you, Livia. An alpha's rejection is a violent, messy thing. He'll want to ensure you're truly gone. Livia nodded, wiping her face. I'll do it. 80 helped her up, supporting her weight. Go north. Follow the river until you hit the Twin Peaks, then head west. The mountains are dangerous, but the valley on the other side is protected by ancient neutrality pacts. No pack alpha has domain there. Come with me, Livia pleaded. 80 shook her head, her expression one of deep sadness. I can't, not yet. They would notice us both missing and send a full war party. I have to stay, to misdirect them. I'll tell them you ran east, toward the Riverlands. It will buy you time. But I will find you, Livia, I promise. Once the trail is cold, I will find you. Livia hugged her friend fiercely. Be safe. You be strong, 80 whispered, pushing her toward the ridge. You're not an Omega anymore, Livia. You're a mother. Now go and don't look back. Livia applied the poultice. It seared her skin, but she welcomed the pain, letting it drown out the ache in her heart. She climbed the ridge, her ankle throbbing, but her resolve was absolute. She crossed the pack border just as the first sliver of dawn painted the sky gray. The moment her foot touched the neutral ground, the invisible tether of Percival's Alpha command, a residual pressure she didn't even realize she was fighting, snapped. She was free. She took one last look at the lands of the Blood Moon Pack, the only home she had ever known. She touched the silvery mark on her neck, no longer a blessing, but a brand. As she turned north, she didn't see the two glowing yellow eyes watching her from the deep shadows of the territory she just left. It wasn't one of Percival's trackers, it was a spy for Mordred, who had his own reasons for wanting to know where the rejected Omega was going. Chapter 3. Life in Exile. 5 years. 5 years had passed since that night. 5 years of climbing frozen mountains, hiding in caves, and living on scraps. 5 years that had scoured away Livia's softness and replaced it with a resilience she never knew she possessed. Whisper Creek was exactly as 80 had described it. A myth, a sanctuary. Tucked into a high-altitude valley, warmed by geothermal springs, it was a village of the lost, exiles, runaways, Omegas who had fled abusive packs, and old wolves without a future. They were a pack of the packless, bound by a mutual understanding to leave the past behind. Livia was no longer Livia, the timid Omega. Here she was Livia the healer. She had taken 80's healing knowledge and combined it with the mountain herbs, becoming the village's unofficial apothecary. Her small cabin, built with her own hands, was perched on a hillside overlooking the valley. It was her fortress, and it had a guardian. Mommy, look! A 4-year-old boy with a shock of dark, untamable hair and eyes the color of a summer storm, his eyes, ran toward her, holding up a struggling trout. Gilly, what have I told you about going to the river alone? Livia scolded, though she couldn't hide her smile. She swept him into her arms, ignoring the wiggling fish, and kissed his head. He smelled of pine needles, clean earth, and something else. A faint electric scent she recognized all too well. The scent of an alpha. I wasn't alone, Gilly protested. Auntie 80 was with me. 80 emerged from the trees, smiling. True to her word, she had arrived at Whisper Creek a year after Livia, having slipped away from the Blood Moon Pack undetected. They ran the apothecary together. They were a family. He's a natural, Livia, 80 said, taking the fish. A good little hunter. Livia's smile faded as she watched Gilly run off to play with a wooden sword. He's a good alpha, she said quietly, her back to her son. His scent, 80, it's getting stronger. The other villagers are starting to notice. They're starting to get scared. 80's expression grew serious. I know. This village is safe because it's weak. It has nothing for rogue packs or alphas to conquer. An alpha's scent, especially one like his. It's a beacon. It draws predators. What do we do? Livia whispered, her hands twisting in her apron. I've been teaching him to suppress it, to be quiet, to be gentle. But he's Percival's son. It's in his blood. What happens when he has his first accidental shift? We'll handle it, 80 said, placing a reassuring hand on Livia's shoulder. We've handled everything else. He's your son, Livia. He has your heart, your kindness. He will not be like his father. I know, Livia said, forcing a nod. But the fear was a constant companion. She still wore the mark. It had never faded. It was a dull, silvery scar on her neck, a permanent reminder. On full moons, it ached. A phantom pain that mirrored the one she knew Percival must feel. A mate, rejected but not forgotten, was a splinter in the soul. She wondered if he ever felt the echo of her pain. She shook her head, dispelling the thought. He didn't deserve her thoughts. Gilly, she called, pulling herself back to the present. It's time to come in, we're checking the traps. Gilly, who was playing at the edge of the woods, waved his wooden sword. In a minute, Mommy, I'm fighting the shadow beast. Gilly now, Livia said, her voice gentle but firm. He sighed, a dramatic sound only a 4-year-old could make, and stabbed his sword into the ground. Okay. He started to run back but then paused, tilting his head. Mommy, he said, his voice suddenly small. What's that smell? Livia's blood turned to ice. Adie stiffened beside her. What smell, pup? Livia asked, forcing her voice to remain calm as she walked toward him. It smells like fur, Gilly whispered, his eyes wide, fixed on the trees. A big fur. Livia scanned the woods. Nothing. It's probably just a deer, sweetheart. Come on. She called for him again, but he didn't answer. He was frozen, staring into the dark pines. Gilly. A low guttural growl rumbled from the woods, a sound that did not belong in their peaceful valley. Livia, get the boy, Adie screamed. Livia sprinted, her heart hammering. Gilly, run to me, now! But Gilly was gone. He wasn't where he'd been standing. Livia's heart stopped. She saw his wooden sword, still stuck in the earth. And right next to it, pressed deep into the mud, was a massive, unfamiliar wolf print. A print larger than any she had ever seen. Her son was gone. Chapter 4. The Birth. The sight of the monstrous paw print and the empty clearing sent Livia spiraling. The world dissolved, the present fear blurring into the memory of the last time she had been this terrified. The scent of pine and wet mud was replaced by the smell of ozone and blood. 5 years ago, the small cabin, battered by a storm that seemed to shake the very foundations of the mountains. The moon, hidden by the roiling clouds, was a deep, ominous crimson. A blood moon. Livia screamed, her fingers digging into the rough-hewn wood of the bed frame. She was in labor, and it was wrong. Everything was wrong. He's fighting, Adie said, her face pale with strain, wiping the sweat from Livia's brow. Livia, omegas, our bodies aren't designed for this. An alpha heir. He's too strong. You have to push. I can't, Livia sobbed, her body arching off the bed in a wave of agony. It's tearing me apart. Her wolf, the timid omega, was raging, clawing at the surface. Not in pain, but in protection. Protect the pup. Save the pup. The storm is at its peak, Adie murmured, looking at the rain-lashed window. The goddess is angry. She abandoned me, Livia roared, the sound more beast than human. She gave me to him, and he... With one final, world-ending scream, the pressure ceased. The cabin fell silent, save for the lashing rain. Adie was frozen. Livia. What? Is he... Livia panted, her heart stopping. Is he breathing, Adie? Please? The baby hadn't cried. Adie slowly lifted the child. He was small, covered in blood and vernix, but his eyes were wide open. And they were staring at the blood-red moon, which had just broken through the clouds, its light staining the cabin floor. As the crimson light touched him, the infant didn't cry. He growled. A tiny, perfect, impossible alpha growl that resonated with the power of the storm itself. At that exact moment, the storm stopped. The wind died, the rain ceased. The valley was plunged into an eerie, blood-soaked silence. Adie stared, her hands trembling as she cleaned the baby. By the first wolf, she whispered, her voice full of awe and terror. Livia, this is the sign of the moon's first son. A child of a blood moon, born of a rejected mate's bond. The legends? They are destined to either unite the packs or destroy them. Livia pushed herself up, her arms aching. Give him to me? Adie handed her the baby. Livia looked into his eyes, Percival's eyes, and her fear vanished, replaced by a love so ferocious it stole her breath. This was not a monster. This was her son. He will not be a destroyer, Livia vowed, her tears falling onto his small head. I won't let his father's legacy poison him. I will raise him in peace. They will never find us. He will be Gilly, just Gilly. She held him to her chest, her own wolf finally settling. purring for the first time in a year. She was no longer rejected. She was no longer weak. She was a mother. The memory faded. The scent of pine and mud returned. Livia was back in the clearing, shaking, her screams ripping from her throat. "Gilly!" She plunged into the forest, following the path of broken branches. "Gilly!" A deep growl answered her from a cluster of boulders. Livia froze. A massive gray wolf, its fur matted with burrs and old blood, stepped out. A rogue. Its yellow eyes were fixed on her, its lips drawn back in a snarl. And behind it, cowering between two rocks, was Gilly. His eyes were wide with terror. "It's okay, baby," Livia said, her voice shaking, forcing herself to be calm. "Mommy's here. You get back. Get away from him." She held up her hands, trying to make herself look non-threatening to the rogue. The rogue ignored her. It took a step toward Gilly. "No!" Livia shrieked. She grabbed a heavy broken branch and ran at the rogue, putting herself between it and her son. "You want him, you go through me." The rogue seemed almost amused. It was huge, easily twice the size of a normal pack wolf. It looked at her, then at Gilly, as if assessing. Then, in a blur of gray fur and teeth, it lunged. But it didn't lunge at Gilly, it lunged at Livia. Chapter 5. The Weakening. 5 years. 5 years had passed since Alpha Percival had stood in his great hall and rejected the goddess's gift. The Blood Moon Pack was strong, its borders were secure, its warriors the most feared in the territory, but its alpha was hollowing out. Percival sat at his massive oak desk, staring at a map of rogue patrol routes. He was in his prime, his body a weapon of honed muscle, but inside he was rotting. His wolf, the proud beast he called Balinor, had gone silent. It hadn't spoken a single word to him since that night. He could still shift, he could still fight, but the connection, the synergy between man and beast was gone. It was like driving a powerful machine with no steering. His alpha aura, once a palpable force that could bring his pack to its knees, was now a sputtering, unreliable thing. And his pack knew. The door to his study burst open. Percival didn't even flinch. Only one person would dare. "They've broken through the eastern perimeter," Mordred snapped, not bothering with titles. His cousin was broader now, his ambition a tangible sour scent in the air. "They've taken 2 of our sentries. Again. This is the 3rd time this moon." "I will handle it," Percival said, his voice a low growl. "Will you?" Mordred sneered, stepping closer. "Or will you send Beta Leon to clean up your mess, as you always do?" "The pack whispers, cousin. They say the alpha is strong in body, but his spirit is absent. They say the goddess has cursed him for his arrogance." Percival shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly. He tried to flare his alpha aura, to slam Mordred into submission as he could have done years ago. The power flickered like a dying ember. Mordred laughed. It was a short, sharp, disrespectful sound. "You see, you are a hollow king, Percival. You rejected your fated mate, your Luna, and in doing so, you broke yourself. This pack is vulnerable because you are broken." Rage, cold and sharp, gave Percival a burst of physical strength. He seized Mordred by the throat and slammed him against the stone wall. "Do not," he snarled, "test me." Mordred's eyes widened, but not in fear, in calculation. He had gotten the reaction he wanted. The study door opened again, this time more gently. "Alpha," Beta Leon said, his eyes taking in the scene. He was loyal, Percival's only true friend, but his face was etched with worry. "Alpha, let him go. We have the rogues in a snare, but you are needed at the council." Percival held Mordred for a moment longer, his knuckles white. Then he released him, shoving him away. Mordred stumbled, smoothed his tunic, and shot Percival a look of pure contempt before stalking out. "He's right, isn't he?" Percival said, sinking into his chair, the burst of adrenaline leaving him empty. "He is a traitorous dog," Leon said, loyal. "But he's right," Percival insisted, his voice cracking. He rubbed his chest, right over the spot where his mate Mark should have been. It wasn't a silver scar like Livia's. It was a patch of cold, dead-feeling skin, black as rot. "It's her, Leon. Balinor, my wolf. He hasn't spoken since the day I sent her away. I can't feel him." "Alpha, you did what you thought was right," Leon tried for the 100th time. "Your first mate, Denna. She used the bond to betray you. She proved that fated mates are a liability. Denna's betrayal made me a fool, Percival whispered, his head in his hands. My rejection of Livia, it made me a monster, and now it's killing me. He was overwhelmed by a sudden racking cough. It was dry, dusty, as if his lungs were turning to ash. He leaned forward, gasping as a sharp, agonizing pain shot through his chest. It felt like his silent wolf was finally dying. Alpha, Leon cried, rushing to his side. Percival collapsed, clutching his chest. His breathing was shallow. He could feel nothing. No wolf, no power, just a vast, cold emptiness. Leon shouted for the pack healer, but they both knew this wasn't a physical ailment. The black cold mark on Percival's chest was spreading, a creeping necrosis of the soul. His wolf was dying, and he was dying with it. Chapter 6. The prophecy returns. The pack's chief healer, Sister Merritt, could do nothing. She offered poultices for the cough and tonics for the weakness, but she looked at the black creeping mark on Percival's chest with unconcealed terror. This is not a matter of the body, Alpha, she'd whispered, bowing low. It is a matter of the spirit. The goddess is a-calling your debt. There was only one option left. Bring me Shota, Percival commanded from his bed. He was weak, his voice a rasp, but the Alpha's command still held, just barely. Leon paled. Alpha, Shota has not left the Moon Temple since that night. She has not spoken a word of prophecy in 5 years? Then she will break her silence for her dying, Alpha, Percival growled. Shota was brought. The seer looked ancient, her eyes clouded over not with age but with visions she refused to share. She glided into the Alpha's chambers, her movements as silent as a moth. She looked at the great Alpha, now pale and sweating on his furs, and for the first time in 5 years, her expression changed. It was not pity. It was impatience. You are a fool, Percival, she rasped, her voice like dry leaves. Save me, he demanded. It is not my place to save. It is my place to see. She dismissed Leon and the healers with a flick of her wrist. They were alone. She drew a circle of black salt around his bed. She lit a bundle of silver root, and the room filled with acrid smoke. You broke the bond, she chanted, but the goddess did not. You severed the tie, but the knot held. What? What does that mean? Percival coughed, pushing himself up on one elbow. She's alive? Livia is alive? Shota's clouded eyes cleared, focusing on him with burning intensity. She lives, but she is not as you remember. The winter has made her stone. The cold has made her ice. I must find her, Percival said, a desperate, frail hope rising in his chest. If I apologize, if I beg her, perhaps the goddess. It is not her forgiveness that keeps your wolf alive, you arrogant pup, Shota snapped. Percival froze. What? You rejected the Luna, Shota said, her voice dropping to a whisper. But the rejection was incomplete. You were bound by the old magic, the magic of the mating heat. Percival's mind flashed back, the scent of vanilla and rain, the soft cry, the feel of her under him. Livia. It had been her? He had known it, deep down, and rejected her anyway. The goddess protected her chosen, Shota continued, and she protected the life that had already taken root. The bond was not severed, Alpha. It was transferred. Percival's blood ran cold. He stopped breathing. Transferred? You rejected the mate, but you could not reject the mother. The bond lives through the child. The words hit him like a physical blow. A child, his child, a son, a daughter, an heir. A jolt of pure, white-hot lightning shot through him. In the silent, dying recesses of his mind, he heard a sound. A faint, distant howl. Balinor. His wolf wasn't dead. It was tethered. Mine? The wolf whispered, a single possessive word. Find ours. Where? Percival demanded, grabbing Shota's arm. The strength in his grip surprised them both. Where are they? She is hidden where the packless go. A valley in the white pine, protected by the mists. Percival was already throwing off the furs, roaring for Leon. Strength born of pure, desperate purpose was flooding his limbs. Wait, Shota commanded. She threw a handful of crimson petals into the smoking bowl of silver root. The smoke thickened, coiling in the air. You are not the only one who senses the new blood. Your weakness has been a beacon. and the power of a child born of a rejected bond. That is a lure for the darkest of creatures. The smoke swirled, forming an image. A massive, scarred gray wolf. A rogue, but one that moved with unnatural intelligence. It was standing over a small boy cowering by a rock. "He's being hunted, Alpha," Shota whispered, her voice laced with sudden fear. "And you are in a race. If the child dies, your wolf and your soul die with him." Chapter 7. The Search. The new energy coursing through Percival was nothing like his old strength. It wasn't the calm, confident power of an unchallenged alpha. It was the frantic, desperate, serrated edge power. It was the rage of a father. "Leon!" he roared, striding into the hall. He was still pale, but his eyes burned. "Gather Gwen and Elion, top trackers. We ride in 10 minutes. Pack for the mountains. We're going to the White Pine." Leon, stunned by the sudden recovery, just nodded. "Alpha, yes? What of Mordred?" "Mordred!" Percival bellowed. His cousin appeared from the council room, a smirk on his face that died when he saw Percival on his feet. Percival grabbed him by the front of his tunic. "You wanted the pack. It's yours to protect while I'm gone. I'm leaving Leon's guard. If one stone of this pack house is out of place when I return, if one elder is harmed, I will not exile you, cousin. I will unmake you." The alpha aura, fueled by the wolf's new singular focus, blazed for a full second, bright and hot. Mordred actually whimpered and bowed, the submission forced. "Yes, Alpha." "Good," Percival snarled, throwing him to the ground. "Now, stay." The ride to the White Pine Mountains was brutal. Percival pushed his warriors and himself relentlessly. They rode for 2 days straight, sleeping only hours in the saddle. Gwen, the pack's best tracker, was baffled. "Alpha, what scent are we even following?" he'd asked. "There's nothing here." "I'm not following a scent," Percival growled. "I'm following this." He slammed a fist against his chest, against the black mark. It was still there, but deep within it, a single tiny ember was glowing. A tether. A lifeline. The closer they got to the high valleys, the stronger the pull became. And then, he smelled it. It wasn't Livia. Her scent was lost to him, masked by herbs or time. It was him, his son. It was the most incredible scent in the world. It smelled like himself, but cleaner, like fresh pine after a lightning strike, like ozone and new snow. It was the scent of new, raw, untapped alpha power. It was tainted. "Rogues," Alien hissed, drawing his blade. "Alpha, the scent is thick, and something else, something wrong." "They're here," Percival whispered. The ember in his chest was burning. His son was in danger. "Alpha, we must be cautious," Leon urged. "A frontal assault." "You will follow my lead, Beta," Percival commanded. He kicked his horse into a gallop, ignoring the warriors shouting behind him. He burst through the tree line into a small village. It was in chaos. Rogues, 6 massive mangy beasts, were terrorizing the villagers, snapping and snarling, but not killing. They were hunting. "Find the boy," one of them roared, his voice half-human. A shifter. Balinor, Percival's wolf, roared to life with a force that shattered his 5-year silence. "Pup." Percival didn't slow. He launched himself from the saddle, shifting in midair. He was still weak, his wolf's joints stiff, his power not what it was. But he was an alpha, and his son was in danger. He crashed into the lead rogue, his jaws finding its throat. Leon, Gwen, and Elion were right behind him, a whirlwind of trained, deadly fury. The rogues, surprised by a pack wolf counterattack, fell back, snarling. Percival tore the rogue off a dark-haired woman, 80, who was bravely defending a cabin door with a pitchfork. He threw the body aside and scanned the battlefield, his wolf's heightened senses searching for that scent. And then he saw her. Time stopped. It was Livia. But it wasn't. The timid, soft Omega was gone. This woman was lean, hard, her braid matted with dirt, her eyes wild with a protective fury that matched his own. She was standing over a She was standing over a massive rogue, which was bleeding out from a gash in its side, a bloody iron skillet clutched in her hand. Beside her, hiding in the folds of her skirt, was a small boy. "Gilly." Livia looked up, her eyes wide with shock, meeting his. The shock was instantly consumed by a wave of pure, unadulterated hatred so potent it made him flinch. He took a step, shifting back to his human form, his hands raised. Livia? She didn't hesitate. She didn't speak. She grabbed Gilly's hand. Run, pup, she screamed. Then she reached into a pouch on her belt and threw its contents directly at Percival's face. The burning, sizzling pain was immediate. Wolfsbane. She had wolfsbane. She had thrown it at him. He roared, stumbling back, clutching his face as the herb seared his skin. The message was clearer than any words. Stay away. Chapter 8. The Reunion. The wolfsbane was a potent, agonizing distraction, but it wasn't enough to stop him. Percival roared, wiping the burning paste from his eyes, his vision blurring. Livia was gone, dragging Gilly toward a small cabin on the hillside. Leon, clear the village, Percival commanded, his voice raw. Secure the perimeter. Take one of the rogues alive. His warriors, models of efficiency, obeyed. The fight was short, the rogues were hunters, not soldiers, and they were no match for 3 of the Blood Moon's elite. Percival stalked up the hill, his heart a thunderstorm in his chest. Hate. She hated him, she'd attacked him, and yet, she'd fought a rogue, with a skillet. A fierce, dangerous smile threatened to break through his pain. He reached the cabin. The door was barred. Livia, he roared, slamming his fist against the wood. Let me in, we are still under attack. Go away, her voice shrieked from within. It was trembling, but not with fear, with rage. You are not welcome here. You have no right. I have every right. That is my son in there. He is my son, she screamed back. You have no claim. You lost that right 5 years ago. A crash from the village below made him look back. Leon was dragging a single surviving rogue, now bound in silver-laced ropes toward the center of the village. The other villagers were emerging, staring at Percival with terror. Livia, damn it, open this door, Percival growled, putting his shoulder to it. You're in danger. I'm here to... To what? She yelled. You brought this. We were safe. We were hidden. This peace was ours until your scent, your taint, polluted this valley. You led them here. He recoiled as if struck. Was she right? Had his search for his son led the hunters straight to him? The cabin door was suddenly unbarred and pulled open. Livia stood there, her chest heaving, her eyes blazing. Gilly cowered behind her, his small hands gripping her skirt. Look at what you've done, she whispered, gesturing to the frightened villagers. Now get out. Take your warriors and get out of our lives. I can't, Percival said, his voice breaking. He couldn't take his eyes off the boy. His son. He had his mother's mouth, but his hair, his eyes, his. Percival took a step forward. Livia pushed him back hard. Don't you touch him. Mommy? A small voice whispered. Gilly stepped out from behind Livia, his eyes those familiar, stormy blue eyes, fixed on Percival. He wasn't scared of him. He was just confused. Mommy, who is he? His wolf. It feels like mine. Percival's world tilted. His wolf Balinor whimpered. Pup, our pup, he knows? He sank to one knee, ignoring the mud, ignoring Livia's hostile stance. He looked at his son. Hello, Gilly, he said, his voice thick. How do you know my name? Gilly asked, tilting his head. He's mine, Percival said, his gaze rising to Livia's. It was a statement, a question, a plea. Livia's face crumpled, the rage giving way to 5 years of stored-up pain. He is mine, she spat, the one I protected, the one I fed, the one I kept safe from you. You rejected me. You rejected him in my womb. You are nothing to us. The words were a blade, and they cut deeper than the wolfsbane. Alpha! Leon's voice, sharp with alarm, cut through the tension. He ran up the hill, panting. Alpha, the rogue. It's not a normal rogue. It's branded. Branded, Percival said, standing slowly. It bears the mark of the Cinder Peak Pack. Worse? Leon held up a small metal disc. He was carrying a communication amulet. I linked it to my own... What is it, Leon? Percival demanded. Leon looked at Livia, then back to his Alpha. It's a message. From the Blood Moon Pack, from Mordred. Percival's blood ran cold. He's declared you dead, Alpha, Leon said, his voice grim. Lost in the mountains, killed by rogues. He has invoked the challenge of succession and seized the Great Hall. He's declared himself the new Alpha. Chapter 9. The Child's Secret. The news was a gut punch. An Alpha without a pack. An exile. Just like Livia. He stared blankly at Leon, the world spinning. He was weak, his face burned, his pack stolen, his mate hated him, and his son was a stranger. Livia saw the profound shock on his face, the sudden, utter defeat. The tiniest fissure of something broke through her anger. Pity? No, recognition. He was, for the first time, as lost as she had been. "Get inside," she snapped, her voice flat. "All of you, we can't stay out here, those things." She motioned to the dead rogues. They weren't alone. I've heard them in the ridges for a week. Percival, Leon, Gwen, and Elion filed numbly into the tiny, one-room cabin. It was warm, smelling of drying herbs and Gilly's lingering, clean scent. 80 was already inside, tending to a gash on Gwen's arm. It was tense. Percival stood in the center of the room, feeling too large, too dangerous. His wolf was pacing, frantic. Our den, our mate, our pup, fix this, claim, protect. He focused on his son. Gilly was hiding behind a small table watching him. "How old is he?" Percival asked, his voice quiet, directed at Livia, who was busy barring the door. 4, she replied, not looking at him. "He'll be 5, in the winter." Percival did the math, the mating heat, the rejection ceremony. The timeline was exact. "You knew," he whispered. "When I rejected you, you knew you were pregnant." Livia spun around, her eyes flashing. "Knew," she laughed, a bitter, heartbreaking sound. "Of course I knew. And what was I to do, Alpha? Beg? Plead with the male who called me weak and a servant in front of everyone? Oh, please, Alpha, don't cast me out and I'm carrying your precious heir. You would have taken him. You would have let your healers rip him from my arms, raised him to be a cold-hearted monster just like you, and had me, what, killed? Locked in a tower? I will not let you have him. Livia, I didn't know. You didn't care." "Alpha," 80 said, her voice strained. She'd finished with Gwen's arm. "You don't understand what Livia's protecting. He's not just an heir." Percival looked at 80, then at Livia. "What does that mean?" "The night he was born," 80 said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "there was a storm. And the moon? It was a blood moon." Percival's blood turned to ice. He stumbled back, his hand on the wall for support. Leon gasped. Every wolf knew the legends. A child of a rejected bond, born under a blood moon, the moon's first son, an alpha of impossible world-breaking power. He is... Percival couldn't form the words. "He's just a boy," Livia shouted, her control snapping. "He's my son." Gilly, terrified by the shouting, by the tension, by the strange men in his home, suddenly let out a wail. "Leave my mommy alone." It wasn't a shout, it was a command. A wave of raw, unfiltered alpha power exploded from the 4-year-old. It was unfocused, pure, and immense. It wasn't a physical push, it was a spiritual one. Leon, Gwen, and Elion, 3 of the strongest warriors in the Blood Moon pack, were forced to their knees. Percival's own wolf, Balinor, the proud alpha beast, was forced into a bow, his head lowering in instinctive, absolute respect. The power radiating from this child was purer, stronger than his own had ever been. The cabin was silent. Gilly, terrified by what he'd done, started to cry. The power vanished. Livia rushed to him, scooping him up. "Shh, baby, it's okay, pup, you're okay. Mommy's here." Percival stared, his mind completely and utterly broken. This child, his son, was his alpha. What have I done?" he whispered, his regret an absolute crushing weight. He had rejected this. He had thrown this away. Before Livia could answer, the newly barred door exploded inward. Splinters of wood flew across the room. Framed in the doorway, silhouetted against the dying light, was Mordred. He was flanked by 2 of his own elite guard, their eyes glowing. "Touching," Mordred sneered, his gaze landing on Gilly, then Livia, then Percival. "A broken alpha, his omega whore, and the freakish abomination. I've come to clean up the Blood Moon line. Permanently." Chapter 10. The Battle Within. "Leon!" Percival roared, instinct taking over. Get them out! Back room, now! He shoved Livia and Gilly toward the small sleeping alcove. Adie and Leon scrambled to follow. Gwen and Eliane, already on their feet, drew their blades and stood with their alpha. You are a fool, Mordred, Percival snarled, his wolf clawing for control. You've abandoned your pack. You've committed treason. I've saved it, Mordred corrected, stepping into the cabin. His 2 guards fanned out, their wolves snarling. The pack was weak, led by a hollow shell. I've come to claim what is rightfully mine, the title and the heir. His eyes fixed on Gilly, who was peering out from behind Livia. The power I felt. It was the boy, wasn't it? The legends are true. A blood moon child. He will make a fine heir. My heir. You will never touch him. Percival growled. The 2 alphas launched themselves at each other. They shifted, the tiny cabin exploding in a chaos of fur, claws, and splintering furniture. Gwen and Eliane met Mordred's guards. But Percival was not at full strength. He was an alpha whose pack had been stolen, whose bond was a fractured, aching mess. His wolf, Balinor, was raging, but not with him. It was raging at him. Fool, Balinor roared in his mind as he dodged Mordred's claws. Stupid, we lost them, we lost everything. Shut up and fight, Percival roared back. Weak, we are weak because we are alone. Percival was fighting his own guilt as much as he was fighting Mordred. Mordred, on the other hand, was in his prime, fueled by years of jealousy and the fresh, stolen power of the pack. Mordred was stronger. He caught Percival with a brutal swipe, his claws tearing through Percival's shoulder. Percival roared, stumbling back, shifting to human as the pain overwhelmed his wolf. He crashed onto the floor, bleeding. He was never worthy of you, Livia, Mordred panted, shifting back, his face triumphant. He stalked toward her, pushing past the struggling Leon. Or the pup. Give me the boy, I will raise him as my own, and you are still a beautiful woman. You can be my consort. Livia, clutching Gilly, spat in his face. Go to hell. Mordred wiped the spittle from his cheek, his eyes darkening. Have it your way. He raised a clawed hand to strike her. No, Percival roared, trying to get up, but his body wouldn't obey. Livia saw it all. The man she hated, bleeding on her floor, trying to protect her. The man who wanted to steal her son, about to kill them all. Her son Gilly, trembling with a terror so deep it was making his power spark and flicker, threatening to bring the whole cabin down. She knew what she had to do. She let go of Gilly. Stay behind me, pup. She ran to Percival. He looked up, his eyes glazed with pain. Livia, run! She ignored him. She placed both her hands on his chest, directly over the black, necrotic mark of the broken bond. She closed her eyes. Livia, what are you? Forgive me, she whispered, her voice breaking. Forgive me for holding on to the hate. It's killing us both. And with that, she pushed. She didn't push medicine. She didn't push anger. She pushed her own spirit, her Omega's healing energy, her love for her son, and the 5 years of phantom yearning she had denied. She pushed it all into the dead black mark. She forced the bond. The silver scar on her own neck erupted in white-hot, searing agony as if a star was being born on her skin. Across the room, the black dead mark on Percival's chest ignited. The rot was burned away, replaced by a brilliant, glowing silver light that mirrored Livia's. Percival's eyes snapped open. They were no longer human blue. They were burning, molten gold. His wolf roared. The power that slammed Mordred backward wasn't just Percival's, it was Gilly's. A tidal wave of it, flowing from the terrified boy, through Livia as its conduit, and amplifying her mate 1,000 times. The broken bond didn't just mend, it was reforged in fire. Chapter 11. The mark reclaimed. Percival rose to his feet. He was not the same man who had fallen. The weakness, the doubt, the spiritual rot, it was gone, burned away. He was whole. His wolf, Balinor, was silent, not with absence, but with perfect, lethal unity. He was linked to his son's raw power through the very woman he had rejected. He was stronger than he had ever been. Mordred, scrambling to his feet, stared in disbelief. What are you? Percival didn't answer. He looked at Livia, who was breathing heavily, her hand on her own glowing, painful mark. You, Percival growled, his voice a terrifying harmony of man and beast. He took a step toward her, She flinched. He stopped, his gaze softening for a fraction of a second. You are mine. Livia met his golden eyes, her own fear ebbing, replaced by the same white-hot energy flowing through him. We, she panted, are ours. Percival turned. He moved. He was no longer a brawler, he was a storm. He didn't just fight Mordred, he systematically dismantled him. Mordred's guards were dispatched by Leon and Gwaine in seconds, the battle over before it began. Percival dislocated Mordred's shoulder, broke his wrist, and slammed him to his knees in the center of the cabin. All in 3 fluid, brutal movements. Mordred's wolf whimpered, submitting utterly. You are not Alpha. Percival snarled, his hand on Mordred's head, forcing him to the floor. You are a traitor. You are nothing. He looked at Livia, who was now holding Gilly's hand. 80 and his warriors watched, silent in the presence of this new, terrifying power. Livia, Gilly, Percival's voice was heavy with authority. In the old law, what is the punishment for a traitor who threatens the Alpha's bloodline? Livia stepped forward, Gilly holding tightly to her hand. She was no longer a timid Omega. She was no longer just a mother. She was the Luna, and the entire room felt it. Her mark was blazing, a silver beacon on her throat. She looked down at the pathetic, broken wolf who had tried to steal her son. Death was too easy. He deserved what she had suffered. Exile, she declared, her voice ringing with power. He will be stripped of his wolf. He will be cast out. He will live the rest of his days as a human, a nothing, forced to remember the power and the pack he lost. It was a fate worse than death. Percival nodded, his expression grim. The Luna has spoken. He placed his hand on Mordred's head and spoke the ancient words of severance. Mordred screamed, a high, thin sound as his connection to his wolf was violently ripped away. The animal spirit fled, and the man left behind was just a man, empty, broken. Leon, Percival commanded. Get him out of my sight. Leave him in the wilderness. He is no longer of the wolf. Leon nodded, hauling the sobbing, wolfless man away. The cabin was silent, filled with the dust of the battle. Percival stood in the center, his power rolling off him in palpable waves. He was covered in blood, his and Mordred's. He turned to Livia and Gilly. He was terrifying. Gilly, however, let go of his mother's hand. He took one wobbly step, then another. He ran, not away, but to the monster. He wrapped his small arms around Percival's leg, burying his face in the blood-soaked fur trousers. Daddy, Gilly whispered, his voice muffled. Percival froze, his heart, which had been reforged in iron and fire, shattered into a million pieces. The power receded. The golden light in his eyes softened. He slowly, hesitantly, reached down and touched his son's head. He looked up over his son's dark hair, his gaze meeting Livia's. His eyes were pleading, desperate, filled with a regret so profound it was a physical thing. Livia. Can we? He whispered, his voice cracking. Livia's own eyes filled with tears. Her hand went to the burning, reclaimed mark on her neck. It no longer ached with rejection. It thrummed with connection. It was terrifying. I don't know, she whispered honestly. Chapter 12. Forgiven under the moon. 3 weeks. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at Whisper Creek. 3 weeks since Alpha Percival, his true Luna, and his powerful heir had returned to the Blood Moon Pack. The pack, seeing their Alpha returned, not weak and hollow, but blazing with a new, terrifying vitality, and a Luna whose mark glowed with the goddess's undeniable favor, fell in line with breathtaking speed. Mordred's short-lived rebellion was a shameful secret, his name spoken only in whispers. Life was new, tense, careful. Livia and Gilly lived in the Alpha's house, but Livia slept in a separate room. Percival had not pushed, had not demanded. He was, as he had promised, earning it. He spent his mornings with Gilly, teaching him not how to fight, but how to control the immense volatile power inside him. He spent his afternoons ruling the pack, with Livia silently at his side in counsel, her sharp, insightful observations proving she was more than just a symbol. He spent his nights alone, staring at her door, his wolf, Balinor, pacing with an unfulfilled yearning. Tonight was the full moon. The first full moon since their bond was reclaimed. Livia stood on the great balcony of the Alpha's house, watching Percival and Gilly below. They were in the training yard. Gilly, concentrating hard, had managed a partial shift, his hands now tiny, fur-covered paws with tiny sharp claws. Good, pup, Percival's voice rumbled, full of pride. Now breathe, feel it. Don't let it control you. You control it. You are its master. Livia smiled. He was a good father. He was a good alpha. But was he hers? She felt him before she saw him, the thrum of the bond. He walked out onto the balcony, standing a respectful distance away. The moonlight washed over them, and her mark and his pulsed with a soft silver light. He's incredible, Percival said quietly. He is, Livia agreed. A comfortable silence settled. Livia, Percival said, his voice rough. I will spend the rest of my life, and the next, making up for what I did. I know that. I was a fool. I was so blinded by Denna's betrayal, so terrified of being seen as weak, that I rejected the strongest person I have ever known. Livia turned to him, her expression unreadable. I was strong without you, Percival. I survived. I raised our son. The question isn't if I'm strong. The question is if we can be. He took a step closer, his hands clenched at his sides, fighting every instinct to just grab her, to mark her again, to claim. When you healed me, when the bond returned, it wasn't just my wolf. For a second, I felt your 5 years, the cold, the birth, the terror, the loneliness. Livia, it broke me. She looked up, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I felt yours too, she whispered, her hand rising to her mark. The silence, the emptiness, the cold. It was awful. I hated you, but I never wanted that for you. He slowly raised his hand, his fingers trembling. He didn't touch her. He just asked, May I, Luna? Livia's breath hitched. She looked at the man who had shattered her and the man who was trying, piece by piece, to put her back together. She saw his wolf in his eyes, desperate, loyal, and pleading. She leaned in, closing the distance, pressing her cheek into his palm. Yes, Alpha? She whispered. His hand cupped her face as if she were the most precious, fragile thing in the world. He leaned down and he kissed her. It was not the desperate, primal kiss of the mating heat. It was not the kiss of an alpha claiming his property. It was a kiss of promise, of forgiveness, of home. It was a kiss that said, I see you. I am sorry. I am yours. The moon goddess's light flared, shining down on them, just as it had 5 years ago. But this time, it was not a challenge. It was a blessing, sealing the bond that fate had decreed and they had finally accepted. A small shout broke the moment. Family! They broke apart laughing, as Geely ran onto the balcony and launched himself at them. Percival scooped him up, settling him on his hip, and wrapped his other arm around Livia's waist, pulling her tight against his side. Family, Percival agreed, his voice thick, burying his face in his son's hair. Livia leaned her head against his shoulder, her heart finally at peace. They stood as one, a true pack, forgiven under the moon. But deep in the forest, leagues away, the banished, wolfless Mordred stumbled into a dark clearing. He knelt before a figure cloaked in shadows, tending a fire that burned with a sickly green flame. She was right, Mordred rasped, his voice broken. The boy, his power, it's divine. The figure, a woman, stepped into the green light. Her face was beautiful, but her eyes were ancient and cruel. It was Sister Elisha, a dark sorceress long thought dead. Good, Elisha smiled, her voice like snakeskin. A blood moon child, born of a broken bond. Such a rare and potent prize. His power will be a fine addition to my collection. His power, she said, her smile widening, will be mine.